Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and that's your other host, Rashid. Um, this is the second edition of our series in the news, and we're going to be talking about the latest news, and we're going to be trying to hit you up more often, maybe two, three, maybe four times a week. And we want the people to understand that when we're not on the air, it's not because of us. So, Rashid, you want to say anything? Is there any topic that you want to discuss at this moment?
Um, what's going on with this world, brother?
Well,
Did
we
you?
know that
Did,
America is catching hell, brother. She's catching hell
did,
because she's dished out hell so much. You know, I was talking to one of our contacts behind closed doors, and you know how people tell you things behind closed doors they can't tell you up front, right? Due to the fact of the power structure and stuff like that. And they were telling me that uh, anyone who has eyes can see that this is karma. This is blowback from the arrogant policies for well over a century, and maybe even since the founding of America. What I would like to talk about just quickly is that America continues to talk about peace, and yet she's trying to arm Ukraine to the teeth. Now, what's crazy about this whole situation is that she's the one who started the entire crisis, and it dates back to way before even the Maidan, when she overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych of Ukraine, and it starts back before James Baker promised the Soviet Union at the time that NATO would not move 1 inch, not 1 inch closer east. It started with America and her fundamental thinking of that she's exceptional and she's the exception to all of the rules. She doesn't have to abide by international law. She doesn't have to abide by treaties. She doesn't have to abide by any of the norms because her thinking is that she's exceptional. Would you comment on that?
well, as I was thinking about that earlier, the Western powers, how did they get their countries? It was based upon conquest. So just like the people of Israel tell America, how can you tell me not to go and do this and bomb and steal when you got yours on the same way, right?
Mm,
How
right,
did they get their country? It was by conquest, conquering, enslaving people, killing them off, and stealing. So you can't tell me, lecture me about, well, I shouldn't bomb up this Palestinian or kill those people. That's her in their DNA. It's to start trouble and to steal stuff. So you can't tell them to stop lecture somebody about sitting down and coming with peace when that's how they got their empire, by stealing, murdering, and robbing. So and then in her latter day, you cannot tell her to stop this, right? You can't
right,
tell her to stop this because that's what she is.
right, right.
Stirring up, like what you said, stirring up trouble. That's her middle name.
and,
What do
and
they
all
say in the 200 and something years America done been in existence? All but 9 years has been warring with somebody. So that's America. That's really the Western powers. Ever since they got on the planet, that's how they operate. You know,
right,
if I don't want something, if I want something, I go over there and even from the cave days, hit somebody in the head and steal stuff. So that's what America does. She's a, and then she put on these airs that, well, I'm civilized now. Well, like I'll give you for example, like the what stealing. Got my train of thought, but go on, brother. Yeah, I'll bring it back up. It'll come back around to me.
okay. Now we know that America. uses NATO as an extension of its imperial arm so that it can have a justification and say the civilized nations, which is crazy because Europe and America and Australia and Canada and New Zealand only comprises a small portion of the population of the planet Earth and only comprises a small portion of the nations of Earth. And yet, whenever America or the UK wants to justify their policy or justify bombing someone or justify taking something from somebody, they'll say that the world is watching, the international order, the international rules-based order, and we know that this is code, this is racist code to ignore all of the poor or white nations or the indigenous nations around the globe. Um, we know that, and I said that to say this. Now we see that NATO, according to the new article that's out, which headlines this: NATO state mulls closing Baltics for Russian Navy, and then in the front, and it says Estonia and Finland discuss missile plans that will close the Baltic Sea to Russia. Talon says. Now stop right there. That is an absolute act of war, and we know that they would not put this public. They would not even initiate any of that were it not for America behind the scenes nudging and prying to see what Russia's reaction to this would be. What say you? And what are your thoughts on that?
I was thinking about that earlier about the what do you call it, divine right of kings. You know, so all of the NATO countries, Europe and Canada, he considered those kingdoms. Everybody else don't matter, right? You concerned with what they say, and then and somebody else out there, look at China, 1 billion people, 1.5 billion people. Well, they don't matter because they're not a part of our clique. They're not the civilized world, right?
Right.
Like you said, 80 to really is about 90% of the world is not a part of their clique. So, you know, they don't recognize them as really people, you know, and I
Right.
can do anything I want. So basically, brother, what it is, that's how they do. That's how they operate. You cannot stop a person from being what he is. If I'm a
Right.
brutalizer, a murderer, a liar, a thief, if words ain't gonna stop me from you shouldn't do that. Well, I'm a stealer. I'm a thief. That's what I do. I steal. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we're perfectly to see that the Western powers ain't gonna change their spots. Can't that's who they do. That's what they do.
And following up that line of thinking about we see that even as their policies continue to falter and fail, they double and triple and quadruple down on failing policies when any rational person would say, hey, this is not working this way. Let me see if it can work another way. And instead, they double and triple and quadruple down on failure. And you mentioned something just a second ago. You were talking um, about how they nobody can make war or brutalize people like the so-called civilized world. And so yesterday you and I were talking, and we had the privilege to hear a clip, an excerpt of Gerald Salente and how Gerald Salente described American policy when he was talking about America. And I want to share that with you, and I want to say this so that YouTube will not suspend the channel or will not say that we've infringed upon any other channels, right? This is a fair right um, uh, platform, so we will be using just like any other news channel. We will be using clips to illustrate some things that we're talking about. So I'm going to play the the rights as we always play it, but I won't play it right now. I'm going to go straight to the clip, and I'll play a couple more clips later during the show. And then I'll play that so that we won't have to keep playing it over and over and over again. But I have to say that to the people people who are listening because, man, every time they get a chance to hit us with a strike or to take us off the air, that's what they do. So to stunt the growth, stop the progress. But I want the people to hear what Gerald Salente has to say about America's policy and how she's always claiming that, like, if Russia does something in the interest of Russia, it's an atrocity. Or if you see another nation do something to prevent America from dominating those nations' border areas, then it's a travesty of justice. And then America preaches to people about that. And then she is occupying Syria illegally. I might add, since everybody ignores that, she's occupying Iraq illegally because remember, 1 year ago and 2 years ago, both they've done it 4 times that the Iraqi parliament voted that America must leave within 30 to 60 days, and she has yet ignored the will of the people, but she talks about democracy. And everybody
Wait a minute, bro. Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute. If you're a king, right? Who cares what a minion got to say? One of my subjects.
right,
I need food. Oh yes, yeah, okay. Leave, go, go. He ain't concerned about what their subjects say.
right,
Look at how they act, their actions. If somebody's actions and words take their actions every time, he ain't concerned about what you got to say. He ain't concerned about what nobody got to say. Even European concerned. I'm the king, and everybody got to do what I say.
right,
Period.
right. And another thing, the people of Korea, South Korea, have voted multiple times for the deoccupation of South Korea. The people of Okinawa have voted multiple times, and they have had. And this is another thing, a topic that is missed by mainstream purposely and by alternative media, either purposely or unknowingly, that the people have been protesting in Japan every day for years. Listen to me. I'm not talking about just some out of the blue protest, a spontaneous protest. I'm talking about this has been going on for years. They have been protesting every single day for the deoccupation of Okinawa. And then there have been protests almost every day in South Korea for the deoccupation of South Korea of American military base. So America's presence in these nations are illegal according to democracy because the people, the will of the people, are speaking and they're saying, "Get out of our country," and this gets ignored constantly in the alternative media, and it also gets ignored in the mainstream media. But what is shocking is that these so-called alternative media sites never once mention it when they are talking about the arrogance of the empire. I have yet to hear anybody speak about how the Iraqi government has voted 2 years in a row, multiple times, for America to leave. And they gave a deadline, and America just ignored it and said, "Well, right now we're gonna redeploy as a training force." You know, she changes it from all she does is changes the title from a terrorist fighting force to a training force, and she draws down about 10 military men or women, and then says we have a drawdown, and everybody ignores that. But it flaunts she flaunts the will of the Iraqi, the Syrian people. She flaunts the will of the North African nations that she's now going into. She's flaunting the will of the Latin American nations that are demanding that her illegal presence there be removed because for as long as she's been in Colombia, the drug situation, fighting narco terrorism and drugs, the drug situation has gotten precipitously worse over years.
Once, once again, when she was in Afghanistan,
I was
the
going to get
Taliban was getting rid of the drugs. Then they came in with that freedom. Then the drugs increased all over the place.
and
That's a nature.
and remember that when the Taliban was getting rid of the poppy plant and they were trying to cultivate the fields to grow other much needed crops.
Crops.
Yeah, the United States goes in, stop it, halted it, and said, you're going to reintroduce the poppy plants. And opium exploded, and Afghanistan became responsible for 90% of 90% of the world opium. And America, the UK, Australia, Canada, and NATO so-called terror fighting units were deployed to protect the poppy field, which is absolutely astonishing.
It goes back to what the Christian Bible say, that there's a group of people that would be claiming to be of Jesus, but do the opposite.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
exactly what they do. They claim to do something, but they're in total opposition of what they're saying.
right, right. And so I'm saying these things for our audience to understand the mindset of America, to try to understand the mindset of the Western world and its hypocrisy, and to show you also that all alternative media sites, they're not really alternative, because what
They're
what they
all
do,
working for the empire.
they're all working for the empire. They
I mean,
give you
it's like Julian Assange, right? The
right,
minute he tells a little bit of truth on the empire, oh God, well, what's happening? We're gonna throw him in jail for 1 billion years.
yeah,
You can get killed going among the empire telling the truth.
yeah,
He should have had enough sense that if you're gonna do that, do it outside of one of her minions,
yes, yeah,
because
yeah,
they all in lockstep,
yeah,
just like that cartoon Minions.
yeah,
The little countries are a minion of the empire.
yeah. And so while we talk about freedom and justice and equality and democracy and international law and
That they break every day.
every single day,
Every day they break an international law. So there's no such thing as international law. Now,
eh,
here it is. Everybody else got to play by their rules where they don't have to play by nobody's rules.
right? Do as I say, not as
Anytime,
I do.
that's right. Anytime anything happens, it's against international law. Well, you bring an international law. What?
Mm,
No, he ain't concerned about that. Like you said, these are the same people. I was thinking about that earlier, about the Christian West coming in and with his Bible and his Christianity and his wine and his whiskey, saying that I'm of Jesus, but I'm still every day he bringing all of Jesus' rules.
every day, but you know what? Again, that is it. I often say this, and you hear me say this constantly, that America's foreign policy mirrors her domestic policy. Her domestic policy is a microcosm of her foreign policy. And the same thing as you hear all of these people within America proper speaking about they are Christians or they love Jesus and do everything outside of Jesus. And let me give you one example of this. On one hand, they want to fight abortion because it's against what they say, and I'm not for abortion. I'm just letting everybody know.
Freedom of choice.
I'm not a, but I want to use it as an example. Okay, they want to that, and they're screaming about the right to life, and yet, as soon as you get old enough, they want to send you to prison and kill you. They won't take the death penalty off out of the hands of these people who are benefiting from an unjust system. I guess they want to raise you as a baby.
Once again, like the days, the kings of old. He wasn't concerned with what his subject wanted.
Yeah. And,
You've
and we,
been conquered. I'm not concerned with what you want to do or what you say.
yeah, yeah. So what it is, they want to raise you up. They want you to be alive long enough that they can benefit off your labor. And after they benefit off your
They'll
labor,
send you to war to fight somebody.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what we need you for. Yeah, you go be in the front lines, and the first shot, you the first one to get killed. That's what we need you for.
and then the people who are struggling at the bottom, they get the brunt force of the empire because these public defenders defend no one. They have lunch with the prosecutor, they have lunch with the judges, and then they set you up on a plea deal that is not in your interest, and then you're forever tagged as a convict. And then they use that to strip your rights away. And if you get in trouble, by some unfortunate reason, then you can get life in prison or the death penalty. This is a succubus system.
What did that Marie Antoinette say when the people say we starving? Well, let them eat cake.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
What is the difference between the feudal system of the when the British Empire was and America today? Show me any difference. It's the same system. Rich get richer, the poor get the shaft.
And so, we're talking about this, and I have not yet forgotten about to play the clip of Jerusalem. But sometimes when you're talking about something, you want to play things, you want to put it in the context so that people can really understand what you're talking about. I want you to hear what Jerusalem says about when he's asked, courtesy of Kitco, he's asked a question about, I think this is Kitco, or no, this is Stansberry, it could be Kitco or Stansberry Research, one of the two. Anyway, and he's talking about the Ukraine crisis, and he said he's against the war, but then he points out American hypocrisy, and I want you to hear this, and it may be a pause because I don't know what's going on with StreamYard and YouTube, so I'm going to play it, but it may be a pause for a few seconds before it plays because I noticed yesterday when we did a live, it did the exact same thing. I want you to pay close attention.
Dare you, Salenti? And the people, again, have no facts of what happened. By the way, the reason they overthrew Yanukovych was because he had made a deal with the IMF and the EU. Europe, don't believe me, the European Union called Ukraine the most corrupt nation in Europe and one of the most corrupt nations in the world. They elected a guy that played a comedian on a sitcom to become president, Zelensky. Oh, and he promised that he was going to get rid of the oligarchs that were running the corruption. Join the club. Read The Guardian. They even wrote about it. So now they overthrew Yanukovych because Putin gave him a better deal. Listen, I'll give you lower interest rates and I'll cut your oil prices. Okay, you got a deal. Oh, and then the other one, again, I write about this in detail for years. The deal was that NATO would not move 1 inch further. That was the deal made with Gorbachev. That's the quote coming out of James Baker's mouth. And now there were 16 NATO nations, and now there are what? Almost 30? Oh, Europe and Canada. Wouldn't we love it if the Russians had missiles aiming at us from Canada and the Chinese were down in Mexico with missiles? And again, I'm totally against Russia's invasion, to make it clear. And if the Chinese, the Iranians, and everybody that the Americans are taught to hate, the Russians, had fleets off the coast of New York and California, oh, they'd love it. They'd love it. It's fine. The hypocrisy is off the charts. Nobody has a killing track record better than America since I'm a kid, since the end of World War II. Oh, and all their brilliant strategies, hey, man, haven't won a war since. Oh, yeah, but we're going to do it this time.
I think he said that, he spoke that perfectly about America's policy. No one has a better killing track record, or no one has a better track record of flaunting and ignoring the sovereignty of other nations, the will of other nations, and the so-called democratic right than America. And yet, every time one of her officials gets on TV, they spew this madness as though they are the just ones fighting against. And what they do, and I have to say this, they fashion the situation around their interests. They make the people of America forget that they were the ones who instigated the Ukraine crisis. And then they try to go in to do something. Then they go in with the media and then make it seem as though that Russia is doing some against international law, and Russia is hell-bent, and Putin is this crazy maniac. Isn't this a track record of how they did Saddam Hussein, who was their minion? Isn't it how they did Muammar Gaddafi? And let me say this, and then I want you to chime in on this, because a lot of people forget this. And I have to bring these points up because you hear it nowhere in the alternative media. Nowhere. I don't care what alternative media place you go to, some of these points you will never hear them speak on. Muammar Gaddafi was up for an award from the United Nations. He was about to receive an award for the United Nations for his progress in his nation, from bringing his nation from the poorest nation on earth to being the most prosperous and richest nation on the Mediterranean. Now, there's something to that because there are European nations that reside on the Mediterranean too. Muammar Gaddafi was about to receive an award for that, for taking the illiteracy rate from being 98% to being less than 1% in Libya. Almost everybody could read. And sharing the wealth, the mineral wealth with the people of Libya. Now, this is what they call a tyrant and a dictator. And so France, Great Britain, America, and Snake Germany, and all of the rest of them got together and they went to the UN and told them to halt that. Do not mention that again. Do not say that. Permanently cancel that. Because they did not want that getting out to the people roughly like 2 weeks before they got ready to bomb Libya and overthrow Gaddafi and sodomize him and rape him. That's crazy.
You know, it's like a group of thieves, right? Sitting up saying, okay, we're plotting their next caper. And they walk up and down and say, okay, then we're going to rob this house right here, right?
Uh-huh.
We're going to rob this house right here. And before we rob it, let's go around the neighborhood saying this cat deserved it for us to come in and kill it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, now I remember what I was talking about getting ready to say about they sitting up there saying that the Iranians say they're going to assassinate Trump and Pompeo and all that. How dare they say, but didn't you assassinate one of their men?
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you spoke on it. I wanted to talk. And now and we brought this up on the last show. Now they go and they use their go-between in Iraq to reach out to the Iranians. And this is
to lure the man in.
And what's crazy is everybody in the media, in the Western media, knows this.
Don't say a word about it.
And will not say anything about this. Trump and his administration went with go-betweens and because they were having problems, they said, trying to win this war in Iraq. And they asked for Iranian help. And it was plausible deniability. They wanted Suleiman, because they had worked with him before, they wanted Suleiman to be the commander to try to get rid, this is what they said, to try to get rid of these forces that they couldn't get rid of. So they set up a meeting with Suleiman and some top generals. When he was received at the airport by one of the resistance group top generals of the PMU, they got in an entourage, and they had a contact man. Listen, this is why you can't trust hardly anyone. They had a contact man in his entourage who let them know which car Suleiman was in.
You mean a traitor? That's what you, come on, yeah.
They had, and he not only passed the message via phone, but he outed which car in the entourage the two top generals, Suleiman and the Iraqi top general, was in. The United States, after luring Suleiman over there to help them fight, they they murdered this man. They committed all kinds of war crimes, and the media overlooks this. These were crimes against humanity and war crimes committed.
It goes back to the Iranians should have had enough sense not to. You cannot trust the empire.
Right.
It go back to the feudal days of the Western powers, right? Where they we need peace, and as soon as you show up with peace, he kill everybody.
Yeah.
That's his modus operandi. He's been doing that for years. But never trust the empire. They should have known that. To sit up and tell you, we're gonna come peace and peace. It's one one of their movies with this William Wallace or the Braveheart.
Yeah.
They invited his father in, right? We're gonna talk peace, and then when he got there, they kill up everybody. He been doing that for years,
And
for them talking about not assassinate. Well, they even talking about assassinating too, right? You can't trust anything he got to say.
right.
If you do it, it's at your own detriment.
Yep. At your own peril. And so I want you to see, and I'm talking to the people, the magnitude of what they did. Not only did they fund sovereignty of Iraq, and they betrayed their go-between, they ignored international law, and they were ready to risk a regional war because Soleimani was one of the most beloved people, not just in Iran, but in the region and internationally. And when they killed, they outright assassinated him. The media justified it, and this is what America did. Remember what you just said a few minutes ago about the Minions cartoon. So they knew that there would be an escalation, so they had already planned for it. So what? Immediately after killing Suleiman, they sent the European ambassadors and emissaries to Iran and said, let's not escalate. Let's not. What the hell do you mean, let's not escalate? You just killed the number 2 person in Iran, the number 2, who was tapped to be the next Ayatollah.
Everybody loved. I remember when he got killed, there were foreign correspondents crying.
Yeah.
That they heard that he got killed. Crying. Yeah. And in America, well, I go back to his actions over time in his feudal era. When he killed somebody, there's barely a footnote in this little media. But but let them kill one of your men. Oh God, the world is gonna stop. He assassinated one of our men.
Yeah.
But that's the empire.
And then they do this, and then they want to bring. And I'm gonna tell you why they started dropping this stuff about Iran is planning to assassinate John Bolton and this, and we have information. This is a pretext. Excuse me. See, when America loves projection, the Western world loves projection. When they do something, they project it on somebody else. Look at what they've done. Russia has trampled on Ukrainian rights, and they projected that on the world stage when they were the ones who overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych. This projection. They say Saddam Hussein was a tyrant. Yeah, but you put him in power. You gave him his weapons. You bagged him. But he's the tyrant and not you. You say that Muammar Gaddafi, right? You say Muammar Gaddafi was a dictator, but this dictator lifted his nation from being the poorest nation on earth to being the most prosperous nation in Africa and the most prosperous nation on the Mediterranean, who went from a 2% literacy rate to a 90+%, 98 or 99% literacy rate, and there was free education. There were stipends given to married couples, $50,000 if you got married, and a free apartment or a free home.
Let me put it this way. The people in the civilized West would love to go to something like that, wouldn't they?
Yes. And think about free electricity. You had all of the basic necessities that the I would call the parasitic West charge you for, like the basic things that are free under God's law. I want you to understand this. The basic necessities that are supposed to be free under God's law, because this is not America has no inherent right to the solar power. America has no inherent right to water. Water is a right, a human right. So they charge you.
You can't tell the oligarchs of America that the water is. He every time he look at something, he's looking at a profit. How much money can I make off it? That's the reason why you don't have the water engine. They made stuff like water, but he can't monopolize water.
and I want our audience to understand something. I want you to see the greed of these people and the parasitic nature of the Western world. And we're going to compare this to the people who they call dictators and tyrants. Because remember, in Libya, there was a free education. You got a choice under Muammar Gaddafi to study college for free in Libya, or the government paid for you to go abroad, and they paid all your expenses, and they gave you a stipend every month for you
Compare
to
that
live
with
abroad
America. If you want to go to a school, you got to get in debt for the rest of your life.
for the rest of your life. And listen, so this is one of the main points that I'm trying to make about how parasitic the Western world is, specifically and especially America and Great Britain, and but the Western world as a whole. Water is a human right. America did not America did not discover
Yeah,
water.
create water. Create
They did
water.
not.
They didn't create
They
water.
didn't make it. They didn't create it. Water is a human right. As a matter of fact, the earth is three quarters water, and they charge you for this, and they charge you for the water. You go to the store, you want to plant something, they charge you for the sand. They have become so parasitic that they charge you for air.
For air.
Air.
That's
I,
right.
I want the people to understand this. They charge you for air. That is how greedy they are for profit and for money, and how they flaunt the God-given rights of everybody, and yet they go before the world and say, we're a Christian nation. Would Jesus do that? Would Jesus do that? That's what you
Would
ask.
Jesus bomb up somebody? Would Jesus have 10,000 nuclear bombs?
And we see this. And
And then
then,
when they bomb somebody, they sit there and laugh and giggle. I remember what General Schwarzkopf, when he was bombing up Iraq, somebody was driving into a fellow was driving into a building, and then they bombed it, and they all of them start giggling. Now would Jesus do that?
or
And then you get up there and go in this church and then run around all pious and talk about how, oh, God and Jesus and doing everything that Jesus said not to do.
Yeah, and Hillary Clinton. He came, saw, he died.
Another Christian, right? Another
Right.
Christian.
See, they are not followers of Jesus. They don't follow Jesus' doctrine. They parrot Jesus' name to justify their murdering rampage on the world. And this is what the Western world does. Not in no way can you compare their foreign or domestic policy to Jesus. And look at this.
Well,
Uh, and, and,
Jesus,
and I have to
Jesus,
make this point. Go ahead, and then I'm gonna have to make this point.
Jesus was a man of peace. Nowhere in Jesus' writings does he say he was a Christian. Nowhere. Jesus said he came to fulfill the law of the prophets. Now, if Abraham was a man of God, Noah, Moses, all of them taught the same religion, right? The same religion. To submit to the will of God, right?
Yeah.
And that's called what? Islam.
Well, listen, I want you to see this. I want to make this point clear. As I go back to comparing America and Jesus. Because when you look at this, all you have to do is say, ride through your city and look at the homeless people, right? And look at all of the empty buildings, not homes, but buildings. I remember when I was down in New Orleans one time for vacation. I was down in New Orleans, and as far as the eye can see, there was homeless people, and it shocked me. You know, not that that was the first time me being in New Orleans, though, because as a child I lived there for a while. But I'm saying it shocked me because of the level of poverty. When you ride up under the interstate in the city, as far as the eye could see, there were tent cities there. And then the people would jump out of nowhere with squeegees trying to get you. If you stopped at the light, they were trying to get you to let them clean your window. Now, what amazed me more was that right in front of the police station, there were people laying in front of the police station's door. I mean, literally in front of the door. when the I witnessed this with my own eyes. I'm not telling you what somebody else told me. I witnessed this and I took pictures and stuff. I still have a lot of the pictures. When the police land cruisers were coming out of the driveway of the police department, they had to stop. You know how the automatic gate opens? They had to stop. Police have to get out, go out of the gate, and ask the homeless to move from in front of the gate because they couldn't bring the cruisers out. That's how bad the poverty level and the homeless crisis it was, and now it is exponentially greater. Now, I said that to say this: as we rode around and we visited places that we had been before, we saw empty homes everywhere, right? And then, so as we get to, we're downtown and we see the magnificent buildings there. You know, even though we were tourists, we weren't really tourists because we knew the area, we knew the city. It's just that we hadn't lived there in a while. So one of the huge, one of the biggest buildings in downtown, you would see a couple of windows just cracked out of it. Now, this thing can hold thousands of people that we just saw up under the bridge. Nobody's profiting off the building. At least if you put the people in that building, you could tell them, look, maintain the building so that the building would not go into disrepair and we have to just level the building. But instead, they would rather for thousands to stay on the street.
That is not how he operates. He don't see the humility in helping people. Only thing he sees is how he can profit off of something. If he can't profit off of it, get it out of here. That's the only thing he sees. You know, they had documented evidence. If they make too many cars, they go and throw them in the ocean.
Yeah.
They make too much milk, they open it up and pour it down the drain.
Yeah.
You got too many shoes, sit up and cut the shoes and throw them in the trash. He's in it. There's no difference than what they said that they went to war to overthrow America from King George. Matter of fact, King George probably is more humane than the American system.
And think about this, how parasitic this society is. You mentioned something about how if they make too many shoes, they cut the shoes, toss them in the trash. You know, when you go to the restaurants, most restaurants throw away all of the food that they have left over from that day or that week instead of giving it to the poor, because it is written in some civil code that if they give it to certain people, then they wouldn't be eligible for tax rebates and this and that. That shows you that the government is hell bent on this, not just business. It's rooted in the very structure of American government, from the lowest part of government to the highest places of the nation. And one would have to ask.
One second. Now, would Jesus do that?
I was just getting ready to ask that. You took it out of I was just getting ready to ask. But see, that is a reflection of how she treats people. And here, like the way she militarizes the police and sends them into urban areas. And then and these people, they brutalize and victimize, and then they use the power of the media and the power of the TV to, just to give you an example. And this is not just, this is done to all people, but specifically black people, but it's done to poor white people too. It's done to the Hispanics. It's done to some Asians.
It's done to everybody that's not a part of his clique.
Anybody that's not a part of the money grabbing, the succubus clique of America, they do this. And what they do is that if you are in a confrontation with a police officer and something happens, they bring up your history, even though your history may be 30 years ago, and you may be able to explain that. They'll bring that through the media, through the print paper, through the internet, to demonize you, to justify the police officer. They will never bring up the many complaints about the police officer. And I'm saying, and some people say, well, not all police officers are bad, which is true. But when you have a system that is diametrically opposed to justice, real justice, and you have a system that benefits off the back of having a permanent poor class and a permanent lower middle class. The police officers are only enforcing the laws of the oligarchs and the elite. So
It is
they
an
may not be bad.
overseer
Yeah, all of
overseer.
them may not be bad. But what do they tell you if you're riding in the car with somebody that just robbed the bank? What do they tell you if you're riding in the car or you hanging out with a person that just murdered somebody? When they arrest that person, guess what? You
You
get
get
by association. By association. And
it's the old overseer deal in slavery day. You know, the overseer, he gets out and acts for the behest of the owner, and he's more brutal than that because he wants to step up one day, be in the owner's position.
that's right. That's right. And it's just amazing. And we're talking about domestic America, and it's only going to get worse here because of her policies that she is trying. She's trying to maintain a a system that is innately corrupt. It's inherently corrupt and unjust, and you cannot maintain that. And that's why she's having so much trouble abroad, because the same system that she's trying to maintain here, she's trying to force it down the throat of other people through the barrel of a gun too. How is she maintaining her system here? Through propaganda and through the barrel of a gun. How is she trying to force it down the throat of others internationally? Through propaganda and through the barrel of a gun.
Did you
This
see
cannot go on forever.
that the one of the brothers posted that somebody called the police on the feds? Did you see that?
No, I did. I didn't see it.
Oh man, it was hilarious. The feds came, the ATF came to get a shotgun. You know, when you buy a gun, later on they can say whether you could have it or not. Anyway, came to the came to the door to retrieve a gun, and then the people inside said, "We don't know who this is. It's somebody asking for our gun." They called the regular police. And the regular police went out and pulled the guns on the feds, and they had a confrontation and made him get on the ground, or they gonna kill him, and then tased him.
Whoa, I didn't even see that. I didn't see that.
And brother, it was hilarious. The police arresting the police.
Yeah, and I tell you, it system. Again, we go back to the domestic policy we were just talking about. All one has to do now is look to her policies over there. She uses propaganda. Oh, Russia is so bad. Russia was did this unprovoked attack on Ukraine when they don't tell you that Russia was well prepared to let Ukraine choose to join the European Union. It was the European Union and America which got mad at the last minute because Yanukovych reneged on a deal that he made with them, and he decided that he better go and keep his economic ties with Russia strong because Ukraine needed Russia's energy and they needed a counterbalance to Western domination. And they overthrew him. And they didn't just overthrow him, they sent in the jackals to kill him. This is missed in the media too. They were Russian special forces had to escort him during a night mission out of Ukraine because U.S. and NATO jackals were trying to assassinate him.
Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute, brother. More of that Western democracy, huh?
They were going to kill him, his family, and his administration. The U.S., but no alternative media is talking about it. Didn't they do the same thing to Tayyip Recep Erdogan, who is a so-called NATO, which has the second largest.
And if it wasn't for Putin, he would have had the same fate.
Well, I won't just say Putin. It was how he escaped. I'll tell you the people who helped in his escape. But Tayyip Recep Erdogan, who is the president of Turkey, that's the way they want you to say it now, Turkey. Turkey, yeah. It's with the Y. It has an E and I think a it had some like not hyphen, but some kind of mark at the end, and they want to go back to where it was pronounced beforehand, Turkey 8. Anyway, but um, uh, he is the president and former prime minister of Turkey, and the United States did not like his foreign policy because he was getting too close to China, and he was getting too close to Russia, and he was getting too close with Iran, and he was trying to integrate and
Play
use
both ends against
yeah.
the middle.
And so the United States, Great Britain, France, and the rest of NATO put up a coup to overthrow him. Not only did they overthrow him, they tried to kill him, his family, his administration, and turn the entire country over to NATO.
To
And
the man waiting in the wings.
they had yes, and they had F-16s looking for Erdogan's private plane, who is the president of Turkey. It took the Russian special forces, who had prior knowledge of what was about to happen, to warn Erdogan. They flew in a night mission to escort Erdogan, and it was because of Syrian, Hezbollah, and Iranian intelligence, along with Russian intelligence, that saved Erdogan's life and his family's life. And the reason that there was a purge in Turkey of all of these naval officers and all of these administrators is because after the coup failed due to Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, Syria intelligence, they handed over to Erdogan a list of a huge number of people who were all tied to it and involved in it. Yeah, how do you think he got the list? How do you think he knew who was who and what was what? And how did you think he was able to recover the evidence so fast after? And another thing, in the midst of the coup, do you know where Erdogan was being held at, where he was hiding at? In Syria, at the Russian airbase. At the Russian airbase. But America had plans to kill their own ally. Not just him, his wife, his children, and his entire administration.
Once again, brother, it's like a governorship. To the empire, Turkey is like a governorship. You know, I allow you to be in control over it, but if you do anything I don't like, I can take that governorship away, right?
That's
As
right.
you were saying about what Russia did, just lay on the table of facts, right? If we had a blackboard, we could put all of the wars and coups and troublemaking that the empire did, and Russia attacked Ukraine. Yeah, that's one. How many you got? The empire got 100 people she didn't attack. But that one outranks all of them hundreds of people and wars and stuff that we didn't attack. That's the way she thinks. It's back to, like I said, she feels that she's the king. And how dare anybody say anything? You know, back in the feudal days, you even said one word against the king, the emperor, your head would roll. And the same thing what they did with the, used to do back in the feudal days, and some other country sent an envoy over to the emperor or king, and he said something he didn't like, he chopped his head off. That's what they did to Soleimani. There's no difference from the people of the past than the same people of the day, because the seed is the same type of a people.
Right. Right. I want to show the people what we're talking about. This is what some of the headlines were right here on the screen. You'll be able to see it right on the screen if they allow it. Hold on one second. There it is, right there. Turkish minister says U.S. behind 2016 failed coup. This is not us just saying these things. This is what the Turkish government is saying. And if you want more proof, I can pull up where the. As a matter of fact, just give me a second. Just give me a second. Okay. Y'all just hold on one second. I'm going to show you how not only is it, see, the Western media make you think that it's in Turkey's president's mind or just the administration mind. But I want you to hear what they were saying understand. Okay, I'm I'm putting this here. I just want you to pay attention. Here, let me see if it'll. But sometimes we have problems with this, and let me see if it'll come up on. Okay, and if it doesn't come up on the screen, then we'll try it again. All right, give me one. There it is. This is a headline from a Western press. This is the New York Times, I believe. It says Turks, meaning the nation Turkey, not just ministers under Erdogan, but the entire nation. It says Turks can agree on. What's that one thing that they can agree on? That U.S. was behind the failed coup. Isn't that something? I'm supposed to be your ally. I have the second largest military in the NATO bloc, and yet you get pissed at me because I don't want to toe your line, and you
You're
know,
one of
hold on. It's not just the argument that we have. You try to kill me, my family, and kill my government and take over my country. Do you believe from this point
you.
on you and I will be friends?
You are one of my minions, and you do what I tell you to do, or else I'll replace you. You can always get a replacement for a minion because the guy in the wings. What is it? What's that? Book? Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? What did he say? They would come in with a gun
Yeah,
and a pile of a suitcase
that's
full of
right.
money. Now, either you play ball, or either your assistant will play ball. We'll kill you, and then he'll do what we say.
Yeah, yeah. This books that I've read when concerning the actions of the U.S. government. He says they come in, they wine and dine you. They say, listen, you have plans for second. If you play along, you stay in power. We give you riches. You can skim off the money that we get up from your people, and this, and this. If you don't, they send somebody else in to threaten you and say, listen, we told you how to do this thing. You're not doing it. Now either you play ball, or we got some people in that you don't know about in your government that will help us overthrow you, as to make the person paranoid. And then if you don't do that, they come in, they try to bribe you. They send somebody else in and try to bribe you. And if that doesn't work, they go for the color revolution, right? The color revolution. And if the color revolution, then they demonize you in the media and they try to
They
assassinate you or
always
kill
got
you
some kind of a trick.
or quote unquote, there is a mechanical mishap with your plane or helicopter or something like that. And if that doesn't work, then they go into full mode war talk and how you are a tyrant, a despot, and your government is illegitimate, and the people hate the government of this tyrant. So under the right, what they call it, the right to respond or something like that, to protect, the right to protect. They made this up. The right to protect, they justify, and then they go into your country and militarily overthrow and make an example for any other nation that try to stand up to the empire and the empire tentacles. Because listen, one thing that we all can agree to. Go ahead.
What did one of the neocons say? Every 10 years or so, we need to go and pick up some piece of crap country and slap him up against the up the wall to let everybody else know what could happen to you if you got out of line.
Right. And a lot of people don't understand the significance of this and why America, because you say, well, she should be able to, if America would only remove her military bases from around the world and come back to America and focus, we wouldn't be in such a debt. But let me tell you something. In the way that America has to have ever expanding debt. She has to have ever expanding markets to project that debt so that inflation doesn't come home. She has to be able to siphon off resources or at least control the strategic waterway, airway, or land routes of those resources in order to hold you the best to say you have to buy U.S. treasuries or U.S. dollars or commodities denominated in dollars. If you don't, we're gonna start a war. We're gonna cause instability. We're gonna do that. That is a vampire. You know what a vampire does? You know what a leech does? You know what
It
a
sucks the
parasite does?
blood of the host. A
And it
bloodsucker.
needs to suck the life. That's right. It needs to suck the life out of others in order to maintain its way of life. If it cannot find a host to suck the blood or the life blood out
It
of that
will
person
die.
or that people or that nation, it will die. That's inherently the American and the Western system. That is why now there's a mad dash for Africa, because Africa is pushing for independence, total independence, and it wants to move in the block of the East. And so all of a sudden you see groups that you never heard of. Think about this. They, 1 week they're talking about Al Qaeda. Then next thing you know, Boko Haram. They know every member history, every family, but you never heard
Yeah,
of
because they set him up. They put him in power.
Yeah.
That's how they.
Hey, do you remember? Hey, do you remember the time when they caught some U.S. Special Forces? They were in Iraq, and they were with so-called ISIS, and they had forgotten when they had the sleeves up, and
all
had
these
and they
American
had
tattoos on.
yeah, all of the U.S. Special Forces tattoo on, and they had on this Allahu Akbar, holding these ISIS flags and stuff, and they forgot to let the sleeves down
And
on
the
their
people
shirt.
over there, they're not too bright to see that this is what this man's modus of operandi is. They don't understand that this man never sleeps. He's always thinking of evil. You go fight somebody, then go to bed. Next thing you know, at 4 o'clock in the morning, he coming through your window. He never sleeps on evil.
Oh yeah, coming through your window. Yeah,
that's right. He
and
never sleeps. He's always thinking of a way to kill you. And just run around talking about this democracy and human rights. He don't care none about none of that stuff. Only thing he cares is about world domination.
that's it.
Period.
That's it. And it's amazing. And they're having. And I had that day that you had to go handle some personal business, and I interviewed Scott Bennett, the former U.S. Army officer in charge of the United States anti-terrorism unit or whatever, right? And intelligence for anti-terrorism. And you saw the video, and how I asked him specifically. I say, so you're telling me that Al Qaeda and ISIS is a byproduct of American policy? He said, no, they are American policy. He was telling me, he told us directly. See, this is why I got suspended and all. He said directly that ISIS.
Yeah, after that show, I was wonder why you got suspended.
Listen,
matter of fact, he was more on the empire than we are.
That's oh my God. We're gonna have him back on and a few other guests. He had the all of the stuff he even showed in the video. He had the a compiled file of all the stuff that he did when he was in the Pentagon, when he was in the special unit in the military, and how he conducted a file, and he was tracing the money from Obama to Trump to, and they even arrested him, and he was the anti-terrorism leader because he brought to them this big. I mean, it looked like a phone book of stuff, and how he was connecting, how Osama bin Laden and all the rest of them was connected to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and Barack Obama and this thing. You have to go to the Patreon, the Patreon.com/Red Pill Diaries, and if you haven't seen that entire, you have to, because he gives it up and he tells us that ISIS and Al Qaeda and all that stuff that you keep hearing about, that's not a byproduct of American policy. That is American policy. They are run by America. This is the man who was over. I have to say this to show the people this. This is the man who was over America's anti-terrorism uh, uh, on there that America runs ISIS and Al Qaeda and these Boko Harams and all of these terror organizations to further the empire and interests around the world.
Didn't they have
That's how.
a British Secretary of Clark or something like that, who said that Al Qaeda, this is before even Scott Bennett, he came up and said that Al Qaeda was a part of America, CIA, and then he wind up getting killed.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So we have a whole hour, I believe it was an hour and 20-minute interview with special, matter of fact, we released maybe like 18 minutes of the beginning of the interview on YouTube, and ironically, as it was released, there was no pictures, even though it was a video interview. There was no pictures, and the sound was being messed up. So you can probably gather why that happened. This man dropped he many bombs on the show that if you look at it, you'll see me do like this multiple times. Really? And I'm telling you, you have to see that on the Patreon. And we're gonna try to have him back. He said he wouldn't mind coming back on the show. We're gonna try to have him back on the show real soon. But it'll be when we do him, we have to do him on Patreon because we've already seen what happened. And we did him on Patreon. That's the whole thing. We interviewed him on Patreon. We got suspended on YouTube. Have you ever heard of that before? The interview was done for Patreon.
Once again, brother. Once again, if you bring any bad news to the emperor, off with his head.
So these are things I'm telling you. There's so many things. I want to play something else. Listen to what Gerald Celente has said. I'm going to play 2 clips of him back to back. One is a 1 minute and something, and the other one is a short one too. But I just played that clip. One of the ones that I'm going to play, but I want to play them in like one right after the other, so you understand exactly where we are and what is actually going on. Okay, and so pay close attention to this again. All right.
Dare you, Celente? And the people, again, have no facts of what happened. By the way, the reason they overthrew Yanukovych was because he had made a deal with the IMF and the EU. Europe, don't believe me, the European Union called Ukraine.
Can you hear me?
You see that? You see what they're doing now that we're talking? Now they're messing with the video. Let me try it again. Let me try it.
Dare you, Celente? And the people, again, have no facts of what happened. By the way, the reason they overthrew Yanukovych was because he had made a deal with the IMF and the EU. Europe, don't believe me, the European Union called Ukraine the most corrupt nation in Europe and one of the most corrupt nations in the world. They elected a guy that played a comedian on a sitcom to become president, Zelensky. Oh, and he promised that he was going to get rid of the oligarchs that were running the corruption. Join the club. Read The Guardian. They even wrote about it. So now they overthrew Yanukovych because Putin gave him a better deal. Listen, I'll give you lower interest rates and I'll cut your oil prices. Okay, you got a deal. Oh, and then the other one, again, I write about this in detail for years. The deal was that NATO would not move 1 inch further. That was the deal made with Gorbachev. That's the quote coming out of James Baker's mouth. And now there were 16 NATO nations, and now there are what? Almost 30? Oh, Europe and Canada. Wouldn't we love it if the Russians had missiles aiming at us from Canada and the Chinese were down in Mexico with missiles? And again, I'm totally against Russia's invasion, to make it clear. And if the Chinese, the Iranians, and everybody that the Americans are taught to hate, the Russians, had fleets off the coast of New York and California, oh, they'd love it. They'd love it. It's fine. The hypocrisy is off the charts. Nobody has a killing track record better than America since I'm a kid, since the end of World War II. And all their brilliant strategies, hey man, haven't won a war since. Oh yeah, but we're going to do it this time. Something or a false flag event. Just like the crap they teach us when we're kids. World War I began when they assassinated the Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo. What's an Archduke? What's a Sarajevo? You mean nothing was going on before that? Oh, no. Oh, and World War II began when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. All right? So it's begun. You hear the hatred being spewed out every day. When I was a kid, they had us hiding under a desk in case an atom bomb went off, dropped by the Russians. It's the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about.
Well,
can you hear me? You there?
We'll see. We're having technical problems now. It seems that they want to block the screen, and they're blocking the entire screen. And now it's pausing on our screen. So I just want the people to understand. I know you can hear us. They're blocking our screen. Maybe we'll be back on there. Wait, here we go. Okay. Hold on 1 second. We're having problems. Hold on 1 second. Hi. Let's hide. It's pausing. Let's see if we can hide it. There we are. So what happened just now is that when we started playing these videos, all of a sudden the stream started pausing, and we had to look on our phones at what the video was saying because we couldn't see it in our main screen was frozen. So that happened to blue. I wonder why. Because we're talking to you about American policy. We're talking to you about the Western world and the Western policy and the hypocrisy of the Western world. And we're giving it to you straight with no chasing. And we don't have a dog in the race. So there are more people. I do believe that there is a concerted effort to keep this platform down due to the fact that we're giving you the truth. They let other platforms grow in thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, and every now and then they get a slap on the wrist or they may get suspended. They constantly take subscribers from us. They constantly prevent videos from coming out. They constantly
now if we was talking about football and basketball and baseball, we never have any problem.
Right.
Or who could dance the best, the dancing show or the dancing bear or whatever.
Yeah. But again, it still does not negate from the fact that the Western world is in turmoil. It does not negate the fact that most Western, most alternative media, and this is the point that most of you are not getting. You will listen to alternative media, and they'll give you a lot of the stuff that you want to hear. But let me tell you something. Some of those are Manchurian candidates. You know, those people are psyops. They're working. They'll come over here when you're supposed to be over there, over here. So they'll give you information, and they'll keep you focused here. Like you see a lot of people talking about the Ukraine crisis, and they're talking about what's going on there. They're not telling you about Mali and how because this is in Africa, but it has a direct correlation with what's going on with the Ukraine. They're not telling you that the Horn of Africa is being weaponized. Great power. It looks like war in what we call the MENA region, MENA. That's an acronym for the Middle East and North African region. They're not telling you that America is pouring in stores of weapons and troops and radars and missiles and warplanes in that region. They don't tell you that China is following suit. They don't tell you that Russia is following suit. They're not telling you that those African were once colonies, the West, are now reaching out China and Russia for, for protection of their government in case of a military coup or assassination attempt or a color revolution. They're not telling you that, but that is exactly what is going on. They want you focused solely on Ukraine when Ukraine is a cog in the engine. They're not telling you that, listen, any loss of life is a tragedy. But in the grand scheme of things, Ukraine, the only reason Ukraine is getting attention that it is because it is a white Western nation and it borders Russia. That's it. It has little to no mineral resources. It has good agriculture, but it has little to no meaningful resources. But the area that is being weaponized to the teeth is North Africa. Because America is trying to maintain dollar hegemony. And not only that, France, Canada, Germany, Belgium, the UK, all of these former colonial powers, they see their grip being loosened on their former colonies. And as I continue to tell you, that Pepe Escobar said there's a race for Eurasia, because that is where the fate of the globe is determined. That is right, but it's wrong at the same time. The fate of the world is determined in North Africa, in Africa, due to the fact of the enormous trade potential, due to the fact of the enormous economic implications there, the massive, unrivaled, mineral and natural resources. And Europe and America has been able to go in there and steal off or siphon off the resources, pennies on the dollars, and sometimes just taking them out, and then refine them and send them back to Africa at exorbitant prices and send them to the world at exorbitant prices. And Africa is full of they call strategic minerals and rare earths too. What China now controls 93 to 97% of the world's strategic rare earth reserves. Africa has an abundance of those. And now there's a scramble to Africa so that America can maintain dollar hegemony. And remember that the British pound is tied to the dollar, and the euro needs these near free assets to maintain the standard of living of the European Union. Because Europe in itself has little to absolutely no resources. That's why they're in the position they're in when confronting Russia, because they have no gas, they have no oil reserve, they have no strategic minerals of gold and bauxite and all ores. They don't have that.
In other words, it's the poor part of the planet, right?
Right. Europe is the poor part of the planet. As I said before you said one time before, the Western world created the greatest scam and Ponzi scheme ever imagined. Think about this. Europe and America, Australia, and New Zealand, they claim to be the wealthy nation. Now we know that Australia has
it's a civilized world.
We know that. Right. But listen, this is what happened. Europe knew that they had no resources. They knew this. So what they did, they came up with a Ponzi scheme. Well, we have a lot of trees over here. Let me tear some of these trees down and make it to paper. Let me get this ink and put this ink to paper and assign a denomination to this paper. And
Wait a
now I
minute,
have
wait a
this,
minute, wait a minute.
and I have
Put
to be
my
civilized.
face on there. Put my face on this
Let me put my face,
paper.
and I have to be somewhat. I have to be somewhat civilized now. Go in there and just gun them down because there's too many cameras watching, and I talk about human rights and values and stuff. So now I have to tell it like this. Okay, I'm going to assign a paper denomination value to your resources. I want you to sell me those resources, paper denomination. Now, they give them these resources for a decided and agreed upon the paper denomination of wealth. Europe takes the resource out, refines them, right? And then sells the refined resources back at 20, 30, 100, 500, 1,000 times what they bought it for, right? And then what these African nations and these Latin American nations and these Asian they left with is an account in euros or 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 British pound or US dollar. Now, when you piss me off, don't tow my I send you where you can't use and it won't be
None
accepted
of the dollars.
that paper with my face on it with the ink on it. So what I'm doing is literally stealing your resources from you. And I'm using your resources to live healthy and wealthy and the good life while you're in poverty because I'm only allowing you access to a portion of the paper denominated money that I gave. And then the other paper denominated, you got to pay me back or I'm going to sanction. That's crazy.
Just think of what's going on now. Ukraine and Russia, they make all of the wheat. You mean to tell me as big as Africa is, nobody there can grow any wheat? You can't grow food to feed yourself. It shows, and they put these puppet leaders in place who don't know which way is up. They bring them over here to America or to Europe, educate them, right? And then once you educate them, they send them back over there, and then this little minion is gonna try to do what America does in his country, right?
Right.
And then what he's going to do in his country
Right.
is to treat his people like the American people treat everybody. And so he's beholden to them. He's educated by them. He thinks like them. Everything that he's doing, that's right, everything he's doing is based upon the way they do business, not the way. This is what they try to do with China. The Chinese communist system is not like the Russian communist system was. It's Chinese. It's specifically made for Chinese. That's what the Chinese want. All of the Chinese mostly agree on that. And then you come like this guy they had over here in America, the oligarch that they made had billions of dollars, and he with abandoning them and giving them a bunch of money and stuff. That's who they get over in America. Usually people, the corrupt and evil people, come over here after misusing their people over there. Right?
Right. Now, that being said, again, do you see the parasitic nature of the things now that we people that are listening and that are viewing us, how the system is and how and listen, they will ensnare their own European what they've done to Russia. $300 billion in wealth that was in the banks, and these were money market accounts that were frozen. So in essence, they stole
Stolen,
$300 billion
brother.
from Russia, right?
Stolen, brother.
That means
Stolen.
Russia. That that means Russia essentially gave $300 billion of mineral resources and wealth away to them. That's what it means. That means to steal that amount of money and to cancel the value of that money means that Europe stuck Russia up by the barrel of a gun.
Remember, brother, these American people, they they admire Jesse James, right? A thief with a gun.
Yeah,
And so now they
yeah.
doing it in
And
the modern day Jesse James and Dillinger and them. They go and steal with a pencil.
yeah, yeah. And but all of this is blowing back because now nations are moving towards independence. We have more moving towards trade, and I was talking about North Africa, the Middle Eastern region, um, for a specific reason. It is no coincidence that Boko Haram, the so-called African terrorist unit, that is an offset of ISIS, an offset of Al Qaeda, right, has targeted the regions and the nations that do trade with China in yuan, and that is also accepting Chinese investment. There's no coincidence for that. There's no coincidence. Once, maybe. Twice, maybe. But multiple times, multiple nations in multiple areas, this is a concerted effort to destabilize regions so that the Western world can maintain their way of living and can maintain dollar hegemony. And a byproduct of dollar hegemony is euro power, it's sterling pound power. So if the dollar falls off the wagon, if the dollar falls off the cliff, so too does the euro, so too does the British pound. That is that's what's going on in a nutshell. That's what in a nutshell. So in closing, is there anything that you want to share with people, especially about these policies, and these lunatic and suicidal policies being implemented by the Western world?
It's karma. That's what it is. You put out evil all of your life. You're based upon evil. The scriptures say that it's got to come back to you. And now the same old games and schemes is not working. That's what that is. It's not working at all. You got the rest of the people, like you were saying about this Ponzi scheme. The rest of the people then woke up to it. The other nations and see that they look around and say, it reminded me of an old a cartoon where the Arabs had all these dollar bills with oil, and they had them all in their closet. Then all in the closet, they just start disappearing. Poof, 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 poof. The Ponzi scheme is up. And this is what happened. Those that took the money, they're looking like fools now. All this money that you got is worthless. And we was wondering how long will the rest of the world get wake up to the Ponzi scheme, to the old 3-card Molly, where you with the shell game, the P. Where's the P? Where's the P? And which shell is it in? Is in his hand. They've been deceiving and hoodwinking people for a good long while, and it's coming to an end. The old sucker out there is not as stupid as he once was. He can see that I'm being played, and this is what's happening.
Yeah.
The rest of the world sees it, and they're getting off of it. And China, and you can't stop that. How, like you always say, how in the world can you sanction guy that makes all your goods. It's unbelievable. I'm gonna slap China down. All China had to do is stop selling you anything. You in bankruptcy tomorrow. It shows you, like I keep saying, the arrogance of the empire. The empire thinks she can do anything around the world and never suffer any consequences for it. But now it's about coming to an
end. So, in closing, join us on our other platform, Odyssey. You can join us on the Patreon Red Pill Diaries. We'll be doing some Patreon videos this week. And also, we're getting ready to try to set up a community on locals, just in case we get banned over here. We're going to have people who are going to be distinguished guests that we yesterday. We're going to have multiple people, and soon we'll have more guests on the show. We'll try to come back tomorrow at the same time or a little bit earlier. Or if we don't get a chance to get back on the air tomorrow, we'll do it a Sunday in review or something like that. Now, until next week again, remember, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous and stay informed. I want everyone to know I love you, man.